PCS Homes and Lifestyle here on Facebook. Livingonguam.com is our website, and Living on Guam Realty is our brokerage firm and real estate company. We are here to help folks move forward with their Guam real estate needs, whether they are relocating or PCSing to Guam, looking for a home to rent or to buy, or if they are relocating, PCSing out of Guam. We are here to help them find either a military tenant or help them sell, because we are the only office here on Guam that can exclusively do the 72 sold home selling system. So that is what we are here for, to help you folks move forward with your Guam real estate needs. As promised, if you guys are part of our email list and you follow us on Facebook and on Instagram and on LinkedIn and on Twitter, I had announced that there would be an interview, live stream interview with Adrian Gonzales of the Fedora Finance or the Fedora Lifestyle on YouTube and on Facebook. So I'm going to introduce him in a bit, but in the meantime, let me just check. Let me just do some housekeeping here just to make sure that we are in fact live. So just give me a moment. Okay, one moment here. Okay, so we are live on the Facebook page. And then I'm checking on YouTube if we are live as well. So just give me a moment. And yes, on YouTube, that is Living on Guam. Or yes, we are live as well there. Okay, so that's great. I'm also going to be checking out for any questions. If you folks have a question for me or for Adrian, then we will respond to you if we get to see and read your comments while you're live. Like Liz Gabriel is watching right now. Hi, Liz. Welcome to our live stream. So we will answer you live. And if you come on during the replay and you just put your questions in the comments, then we will do our best to also answer you. I mean, we will definitely answer you, right? It's going to be either in the comments or we are going to be emailing you or calling you directly. So let me just wear my spectacles here and let me invite on to the screen Adrian Gonzales. So, okay, there you go. Hi, Adrian. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Yes. So, of course, Adrian and I, we go back a few years. Adrian was a client, okay, and he is one of our strongest referral ambassadors. Anybody he meets in his command or wherever else, he always says, hey, you're looking for a home to buy or a home to rent, Living on Guam Realty is the place to go, okay, or we'll be there to help you. But Adrian, for those in the audience who don't know you, sir, can you please tell us about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yes, like you said, we've been, had a great working relationship. Appreciate it. And, I've been in the real estate business now, I'd say for about over 15 years, buying and selling homes across the United States. And as soon as I found out I was coming to Guam, I thought, this is a perfect opportunity. Did a lot of research, which we're of course going to talk about, and found a golden opportunity. And of course, I needed someone in my corner that, a real strong, good work ethic, and, looked around at a lot of agents, but, landed on a really good one. And I'm really glad that we got to work together, and it's been great. A little bit about myself. Like I said, I've been buying and selling real estate now for almost 15 years. And for those that the math, they realize that kind of started right around the housing crash of 2008. Which I learned a lot from that. And from those humble beginnings, I expanded into buying commercial property in the gas and oil industry up in Wyoming, houses, condos, townhomes in San Diego area. And that spurred me always, because I've always been interested in finances. And so that's where I got into being a command financial specialist with the military, where we specialize in personal financial management, and a basic function is what we do for our sailors. And we provide financial education, some training, counseling, and information and referrals to our sailors. So that's kind of a little gist about me.
So you know what you're talking about then. I just didn't invite you over here because you're a client.
No, I have a little bit of experience in this field. like I said, quite extensively with multiple types of real estate transactions, as well as buying, selling, and just sort of seeing what the market has to offer in really good, strong times, really down times, and the very unique opportunity that Guam provides, especially to our service members coming out here.
Okay, that's great. Well, Adrian, can you tell me why, and I'm sharing here on the screen, can you tell me why your YouTube channel is called the Fedora Lifestyle, and then your Facebook is also called the Fedora Lifestyle? Can you tell me more about that, sir?
Absolutely. And so obviously I like fedoras. They're a very holistic hat. Instead of just having a ball cap that covers the face, the fedora covers the ears, back of the neck, and it looks great. And there's one thing I realized over the years is finances are very holistic, just like the fedora. You cannot put your finances in a little box and set them in the corner and just forget about them. They touch every part of our lives, whether we are looking at our grocery budget or buying a home, whether we're investing for our future, or whether we're just enjoying our lives, going out and having a good time. Finances is going to touch every part of our lives. And like, again, just like the fedora touches everything and covers everything, having a holistic approach to finances is the only way to take control of finances and not have the finances take control of us, which is where I found myself years and years ago, where I was struggling, trying to afford a house that I couldn't afford, no idea what I was doing, maxed out on debt, to becoming very financially stable, enjoying real estate, enjoying investing, and enjoying my life with not having the sunburned neck and ears, as it were, of the financial realm. I'm completely covered and protected, and now I feel so much better and have a better grasp on my finances.
So I really enjoy your YouTube channel, and I'd like to point people out to your YouTube channel. So again, if you can follow Adrian, his channel is called Fedora Finance. Can you tell us more about what content you have on that YouTube channel, Fedora Finance? Adrian, please.
Absolutely, and thank you. Yeah, really appreciate that. So in the beginning, I started out with what I basically give a spiel. It's about 6 or 7 videos of just developing a financial stability and how it all really starts internally, taking control of yourself and taking control of your desires and how you spend. And then we break out into budgeting. Of course, after budgeting, we break out into what's called an emergency action plan or emergency plan, having funds in place for a rainy day. And then later on, we talk about insurance. We talk about, again, all things holistic, but we break it down in a very simple, I break it down in simple, easy to follow kind of guidelines. And once I finish that, then we talk a little bit more about investing in real estate, investing in the stock market, investing for your children, whether you have them or not, what a 529 account might be, what a custodial account might be, how to invest in a Roth IRA versus traditional, almost anything and everything to do with stable finances and going forward holistically with finances. And we also break down some of the news stories, a lot of doom and gloom in the news, but when you have a strong financial foundation, I find there's really not a reason to keep clicking on the news stories and being terrified. When you know what you're doing investing, and especially with real estate, just the security you can have in owning your home makes all that go away. And so I really try to promote healthy, uplifting videos about finances and the path forward, because there's always a path forward, no matter how dark things can seem sometimes.
Right. So I love your positive view, and and so I guess that's why we connect. We see eye to eye here because birds of the same feather flock together, right? So again, folks,
Yeah.
join Adrian, follow him, subscribe to his YouTube channel, and he also has a Facebook page, the Fedora Lifestyle. So why don't we go ahead with our interview, Adrian? So here we go. So this is not the first time you've been to Guam, or that your tour was in Guam, has it?
So this is the first time I've been stationed on Guam, but I have been blessed to be able to come here in prior deployments. And I did a little research of the island as soon as I got here, being a big real estate guy, and seeing a lot of the prices at the time, it really intrigued me. And then finding out that, of course, what Guam is American territory, purchase homes here, led me to do a lot of research about Guam and really appreciate it. And just, of course, the beautiful island that it is.
So can you tell me because now that you've been stationed here and you moved to Guam and you know a lot of other service members, especially the sailors in the Navy, right? You've met them, you know their situation. Can you tell the audience, what is the cost of moving to Guam?
So it's kind of a twofold question. And just to reiterate too, I like Guam so much, I actually am now a resident. So there's that. But there's a twofold cost here. So the first cost is if you want to come here to kind of rent or just to move yourself here. Realistically, moving in the military, they say it's free. It really is not. There are a lot of considerations, pets, cars, etc., all that. But getting here and having money set aside, I've noticed specifically when I talk to sailors that it can cost anywhere. It's going to be from $5,000 to $10,000 up front, whether you're borrowing that money from the Navy or you're paying out of pocket. Now, that may seem like a lot of money, but when you consider the fact that when I talk to a few people that I know kind of higher up, and you realize that if someone actually wanted to move to Guam, move all their stuff here by themselves, right now they'd be looking at somewhere from $25,000 to $30,000 just for the shipping of their household goods.
And this is like, for example, a civilian that just wants to move to Guam.
Yes.
But right now, what we're focusing on is service members, whether
Yes.
they're Air Force, Navy, Marine, Army, Coast Guard. How much will it cost for a service member to move to Guam, even if they are being stationed here and the military is paying most of it? It's not free, you're saying. They still need to have some money.
That's absolutely correct. If a single individual, I would still recommend in the ballpark of about $5,000, and that's minimal. If you bring about a family, yes, for an individual, yes. For a family, anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 is what I'd recommend. And again, there are upfront payments, and the Navy can front you the cost, but you're going to pay that back in the end. So having that money is detrimental.
Okay. So no, having that money is advantages. That's what you're saying. Like having that money saved is advantages. Now, why? Let's say if I'm coming unaccompanied, coming in as a single person, why do I need $5,000?
Right off the bat, right off the bat, you are going to start looking for a place to live. Of course, you don't want to stay in the hotel, and you're going to be living. This is American territory, so we'll be living out in town. At minimum, you're probably going to find a place with a rental value of $2,205, and of course, we're going to discuss that number a little bit more. But $2,205, that's going to be. You got to remember now your first month's rent and the security deposit. So right off the bat, you're looking at about $4,400. Then you're going to need about $500 to set up your electricity. And then you're going to start wanting to get your internet in place and a few other upfront costs, getting your trash and getting your water turned on, setting up your insurance in case you've never had renter's insurance. You definitely want to have that renter's insurance in play. So there are a lot right there. You can tell that's almost $5,000 to $5,500.
That's $5,000 just finding a place. You haven't even mentioned TLA. TLA is they pay for the hotel up front, then seek reimbursement, right? After 10 days.
Right.
That's just having a roof over your head. What about food? You're not going to be eating peanut butter sandwiches for the next 30 days while you're in TLA, right? So all these things add up, especially if you have a family.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And like I said, just a single person, I mean, they are eating peanut butter sandwiches most of the time because they can't afford anything else. They don't know. They didn't bring any money, and now they're struggling. And a lot of people, it's very sad, but I have to refer a lot of people to our fleet and family service to go get loans because they run out of money. It has happened many, many times. It's very heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's sad. I mean, that's why it's good for them to be educated, like as soon as they know, well, even before they know. But if Guam is a possible duty station, they already need to be saving up. Because if you happen to be stationed in Guam, yes, it is paradise. It is a tropical paradise, but getting here in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of out-of-pocket expense.
That
right,
is
Adrian?
correct. Absolutely.
Okay, so moving on to our next question. Okay, granted, that's about $5,000 if they decide to rent. Okay, now my next question to you is, would you recommend buying over renting? This is for a military serviceman that is being stationed here on Guam. Okay, this won't apply. This question doesn't really apply for civilians or federal contractors. This is more for servicemen that are being stationed PCSd here on Guam. So the question to you, Adrian, is would you recommend buying versus renting?
I would absolutely, if the service member is in a strong financial position and have their finances together, I 100% recommend purchasing a home and investing in a property here on Guam. It is absolutely, and this is my personal opinion, but absolutely advantageous for a service member who, again, has all their finances in place and uh, for the process. Absolutely. Guam, for a service member coming here, even on a 3-year tour, purchasing is such a powerful tool, especially on Guam. I do recommend it.
Okay, so now I have a follow-up question. When you say financially healthy, financially stable, how can, if I were a service member, how can I determine, how can I assess for myself that I am financially stable? What's my criteria? What should be my criteria?
And that's a wonderful question. And the first thing I say is you have to have a budget. You being able to track your finances every single month is going to be vital, and that's very important because you have to know your spending habits, because you're also going to have to adjust those spending habits when you get here. The second thing is having control of your debt. Uh, Exorbitant debt is going to crush a possibility of coming out here and purchasing a home, because what's going to happen is all your money is going to end up going to your debt. So having your debt under control, very low debt to income ratio, I recommend under 20%. And then having
under 20%, is that what you said?
Under 20% debt to income ratio, yes. That's what we recommend. I recommend even lower. If you can get to 0, that's perfect, but that's for another time. And then having a good chunk of change to be able to go through the home purchasing process, because buying a home does cost money. A lot of misinformation out there that says you can buy a home with no money, you can use the VA, and the VA's got zero money, zero down. That is not true. No matter what, buying a home is going to cost money. So having your budget in place, having your debt under control, and having money to purchase a home sets you up for some wonderful success buying a home here on Guam.
Okay, so to recap that question, the way for you to determine if you are financially stable is, number 1, you have a budget. Number 2, you pay down your debt, so you have very low debt, so your debt to income ratio is at most 20%. The lower the better, correct? Yes. And then number 3 is you need to have money saved up. Okay,
that's perfect.
So there's no crisis later on. So that's good. Thank you so much for answering that question. Proceeding to the next one. When would you recommend renting over buying? Because yes, you said yes, let's go ahead and you would 100% recommend buying, but buying is not for everyone, and I tell that to all my clients. Buying is not for everyone. When would you recommend renting over buying, Adrian?
So basically the exact opposite. You kind of turn everything around. If you're really not tracking your finances very well, you have a lot of debt, you don't have a lot of money in the bank, and perhaps you're going to be on Guam for a very short period of time. 2 years would be a little iffy, if you're not planning on holding on to the property long term. Another time that may not be right for you is if you really haven't done the research about the area. A lot of people will go and try to buy properties sight unseen, or they will try to rush out and get the first thing they see. And it can be a nightmare. Not assessing the market properly and just not willing to be able to put in the work that it does take to be a homeowner. Because no longer Is it, hey, you just call the landlord and tell them the plumbing's fixed? No, you are the landlord. And now you need to determine whether or not you can fix it yourself or whether or not you have a budget in place that says, hey, I have maintenance expenses that I need to pay. They're added into my budget. And now I can do it. If you're not willing to put that kind of work in, then it's just not for you. Owning a home and being in real estate and investing in real estate, especially, many people say passive income all day long. That's just not the case. You have to be very willing to look at your investments and be on top of your investments, especially real estate. So if just for people that are not willing to kind of put that work in, it can set up very poorly. And I've seen people get crushed by poor decisions to jump in too soon.
Right. Well, here's a story that I'd like to tell myself, right? So in the past, when I first started with real estate, I was quite hesitant to recommend buying, right? Because I didn't want the clients to think that I'm pushing for them to buy because I make more commissions. So that was my mindset. It was a very limiting belief in the beginning. So I did that for a few years, and then I made friends, like, you know, I make friends with a lot of my clients, and then one of my clients moved to London. Okay, so then we were in Europe, and then we visited them, right? And then they said they were gonna buy a house in London. I said, oh, wow, that's so nice. And then they make this snide comment. You know, we were gonna buy in Guam, but our realtor didn't tell us, didn't recommend that to us. I don't know what our realtor was thinking, right? And I was the realtor. And I'm like, wait a minute, are you being sarcastic? They're like, yeah, we're being sarcastic. You should have told us to buy. So now I realize me not planting the seed for my clients to buy a house here on Guam because it is financially smart is a disservice. Okay, it's a disservice. Me not serving my clients well if I don't even bring that possibility up. So that's why if I bring it up, folks, it doesn't mean because I want to make a sale and make more of a commission. It's because I'm thinking of you missing out on a financial opportunity. Because instead of paying a landlord rent, your OHA, you could be paying yourself that money with a mortgage because you build your equity, right? So anyway, that's my short spill on that one. And I have a question for you. My next question for you, Adrian, is can you explain, because remember, we were saying that you are in a financial situation or circumstance if you have money saved. We say that because of the closing cost here on Guam. And closing cost here on Guam is much more than the closing cost in the mainland US. Can you tell us more about that, please, Adrian?
Yeah, that kind of threw me off a little bit. And I was lucky to be in a position still to be able to easily close on the home. But in the States, usually I've worked with a lot of the realtors and things out there. I was able to get a pretty good deal closing around the 3 to 3.5%, 4% range. Out here, it was a little bit higher. I was looking more towards the 6% range. And I realized a lot of the fees were just a little bit higher, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And so, as we've kind of discussed why that is, the other thing that caught me off guard a little bit, because the one thing that I did learn, because I hadn't used the VA funding fee twice before, was the VA funding fee was higher the second time I used it, and so that upped my closing costs as well. But yes, closing costs here on Guam can be just a little bit higher. You're paying a little bit more of the fees. Obviously, again, we're on a beautiful tropical island. And in order to get some of that premium, you kind of got to pay a little more up front, is what I've definitely noticed with regards to the closing costs.
What I've noticed myself is that in the mainland, it's about 1 to 2% for closing costs. Here on Guam, it's anywhere between 3 to 4%. Okay? And when I tell my clients that, so here's a guy thinking that everything is, you know, buying a house on Guam is free because the VA is going to pay 100% of this. So I always talk to my clients, right? I say, okay, Mr. S, okay? Mr. S, you are looking at a $400,000 home. You want to buy this $400,000 home. Now, sir, closing costs on Guam is anywhere from 3 to 4%. So that is what? $16,000, right? To close. That's being conservative. That's on the high end side. You may not pay up to 16,000, but I always ask the client, do you have $16,000 saved? Right? Do you have this? Now, if they say, I only have $1,000, that is when I'll say, I think you better rent, right? Because they will say, well, I want seller's credit. I want the seller to pay 4%, cover all my closing costs, and we will get to that shortly, Adrian.
Yeah.
We will get to that. And I want them to cover everything because I don't want to pay anything, right? So that's what the client will say. So I have to explain to the client that closing cost here on Guam is 3 to 4%, nothing like compared to stateside. Plus, it is a seller's market right now. Yes. Okay. So Adrian, before we even touch seller's market, you want to add anything more about closing cost?
No, you're dead on right and accurate. And like I said, my figures also include that VA funding fee that some people don't include.
Because, so, yes. Okay. So that's why it goes up to 6.
Say one more time.
So that's why it goes up to 6, because plus the VA funding fee.
Yeah, people think that VA is free, and it's not. And so that 1 to 2% can turn into 3 or 4%, and that 3 and 4% can turn to that 5 and 6%. The VA funding fee, using it the second time, will cost you 3.6%. So people are not aware of that, and they think it's free. It is not. It can cost you. So being aware of that up front, and that turns that 16,000 into a very real number very quickly. So yeah, that's kind of where those numbers come from.
And I also tell the clients, closing costs in Guam, why it's more expensive is because title insurance for the bank is more expensive.
Yes.
Owner's insurance for the bank is more expensive. Appraisal is more expensive. So all these things add up. So that's why you get to 3 to 4% without the VA funding fee as far as closing costs is concerned. So, okay. So let's go on to our next question about the seller's market. So again, what I tell my clients right now, it's a seller's market. So folks, if you don't know what a seller's market, there's 3 types of real estate market. One is a seller's market, one is a balanced market, and the third one is a buyer's market. Right now, Guam and almost the rest of the world, even especially in the mainland US, it is a seller's market. What that means is there are more buyers than there are houses for sale. So there are a lot of buyers competing for one house. Okay, so if you folks think that you can get seller's credit, okay, like this example that I did earlier, a $400,000 home, then that means it's about $16,000 to close. If you think you can ask the seller for that $16,000, you're in for quite a surprise, because now that the sellers have the upper hand, they will go with a buyer who's not going to ask for that $16,000. Right, Adrian? So you want to talk more about Guam being a seller's market, sir?
Absolutely. And just a seller's market, a lot of people, so once you buy a home, you get to see one side of the equation. When you sell the home, you get to see the other side of the equation. And you have to ask yourself, as a buyer going in to the market, what's the market looking like? And in a seller's market, if you were the seller and someone came to you and said, okay, we're going to offer you, say $400,000 for the home, but we want you to pay the closing costs. And someone else comes to me with $4,000 because the home is appraised at $400,000. Okay, great. And they say they're going to pay the closing cost. Well, guess who I'm going to go with? I'm going to go with the maximum amount of money, and they're going to pay, because there are people willing to make offers over the appraisal price. And so I am not going to come out of my own pocket, out of the money of my profits, to accommodate you. Just not. The market, that's basic supply and demand. As you just stated, the supply is low, demand is high, and the seller is going to kind of call the shots. So, and it just keeps going up. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So, yeah, you got to see it from both sides. And as the seller right now in this market, no, I'm not gonna give a penny up. I'm gonna get it for everything that it's worth.
And that's how we also go back to what we had mentioned in the beginning, that you really need to save money. You buy, okay, if you're in a financial situation where you have saved up to, not necessarily all of that 16,000, but up to 16,000, or if you have even more saved, even better, because there will be, when you get into a competition, into a bidding war with another buyer, you don't want to ask 16,000 for the seller, from the seller, okay? You want to have that $16,000 on your own. So that is the seller's market right now. So that's great. Okay, so another thing that we need to talk about also, Adrian, is the timeline of closing a home on Guam. This is an island, folks. So you notice people are so relaxed and they move slow. So Adrian, tell us about Guam's timeline to manage people's expectations of how fast they can close a home.
So the one thing, and of course, I think everyone says this, but you said in the very beginning, half a day, and in the beginning, I think everyone tells the joke. I'm like, is that the working hours? It's just half the day? Because I don't know what that means. Because people here they will move easy. Yeah, they are slow and easy going. They're very relaxed, very good people. But when it's time to go hit the waves or go to the bar, we're done. So it does take a little bit longer. The thing I tell people too is competition does take a little bit of time. You want to get the best. Of course, like I said, I shopped around for a real estate agent. I mean, we talked to many agents. You were very punctual to answer the phone and very ready to call us back, even though we were in the States, and work with us. So we said, okay, this is an agent that's going to do what we need. Then we worked around and looked for our bank. We shopped, and it takes that time. Here, so even more, because we would call a bank and the bank would eventually get back to us. We finally found a bank that would actually work with us. And then we would talk to insurance companies and they would get back to us after a day or two. And then getting the appraisal would take some time. And so it took a little more time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just took a little more time than we were used to. And then we found out about your 72 program a little bit later, but that was fascinating to us. But I'm not to where the States now, I expect to close a house in the States in 2 to 3 weeks. I expect everything done. I'm going to front load. And when I say go, it's go. But here again, it is more relaxed. It is a little bit slower of a pace. Mind you, couple this with you're working with a third entity, because now you're working with the military. And the military, you have to go through the housing office. You have to get your pay set up. You have to find a place to live, all this other stuff. So you're working with the housing office or the unaccompanied housing office with the military. So you're adding a third party in. And for all us military folk out there, we know that sometimes the military on the paperwork side can take a little bit of time. So that can also hold up the process. So realistically, you could be looking at anywhere from 60 to 90 days. So it could take a while. And that's something definitely needed to be considered when coming out here and buying a home.
Okay, so with that being said, so I always tell them every Friday or every Saturday when I do my live stream about the Guam Weekly Market Housing Review, I always tell them here on Guam, you can close in 45 days. That depends on the lender that you have, 45 to 90 days, okay? Your TLA, if you PCS here on Guam, your TLA is good for 30 days, right? But some of them, tell me about this one, Adrian, some say, well, I got 60 days.
It's a fight. Yeah, I was blessed to get it, but it was not fun. And I had to write a small book to my commanding officer and to the rest of the Navy as to why this was justified. And even the housing office, I told them, hey, I'm closing on a house. And they still told me I needed to go look for at least 5 places every single week. And I had to fill out addresses. And I had to go in there every single 10 days and just put up a fight. And it was not fun. So the whole 60-day thing, good luck. You are not getting that for free. And it's not just a simple check in the block. That's a fight that you're going to have to put up.
So 30 days is for sure, right? You get 30 days TLA, but you have to show housing that you are actively looking for places. but then if they see that there's a contract because you are buying, then that's a different story. But if it's a rental, you have to show housing that you are actively looking with your realtor, because housing will also call the realtor to verify that you are actively looking with them, right? So
They will.
So you have 30, but if you're buying, so you have 30 days for TLA. Not everybody is granted another 30-day extension for 60 days. So what is the solution here?
So some of the solutions that we considered and some of the people I've talked to was a short-term lease, a month-to-month, as it were. But again, still difficult, not impossible, but something to consider. It does work a little bit better. I have seen it on a few occasions. Obviously, it's a very limited niche, but if you're a single or unaccompanied sailor, or single sailor, and you're coming out here and you have a friend who you can crash with, that's an option. I mean, I don't particularly like couch surfing anymore. I'm getting a little too old for that. But, perhaps a little bit younger, by yourself, no pets, in a perfect situation. But a month-to-month are possible, or perhaps even a short-term stay, a 6-month lease, if you will. If you're dead set on buying and you perhaps you're going to be out here for a long term, there are people that are here for 5 years that are on the sea duty side of the house that might be here for 5 years and they say, yes, I'm buying. Taking 6 months to just get here, decompress, get into the schedule, save up a little more money, and then be ready to buy as they get to look around might be an option. But you have a month-to-month, perhaps a shorter term lease, and or couch surfing, which I don't recommend if you don't have to.
Couch surfing is good. It is only possible for unaccompanied, the single folks, right?
Yeah.
Because as a family, you can be couch surfing with kids and a wife, right? But so yes, Adrian did mention some options. So you can do short-term rentals, okay? And they're month-to-month rentals. But please be aware, because the market is so crazy here on Guam. There's just a lot of demand for military desirable homes. The landlord will not entertain short-term rentals, because why entertain a 6-month or a 3-month lease when somebody over here is going to be offering me 2-year lease, right? So more often than not, the landlord will choose the 2-year lease. Now, if you work with Living on Guam Realty, we do know of some properties that are willing to do short-term leases, because especially if I talk to the landlord or the landlord's agent, letting them know that you are in the process of buying. So we do have short month-to-month rentals that we could recommend to the clients that are working with us exclusively to buy. Okay, what about pets? You better be thinking about pets too when you're buying. Can you share your tip on that one, Adrian?
A long, sad story, but I had a dog and we moved that poor little guy from California to Japan and then back again. Having pets in the military and going overseas is hard. Coming to Guam, especially during the current, is very difficult and very expensive. I know people that have moved 2 dogs off the island for about $10,000, and that's a lot of money. And I understand people love their pets, and I'm not advocating for getting rid of animals or anything like that. Just be prepared for those costs. There is one shelter that I know of. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I only know one on the island, Gain. I do know people foster. I know you can kind of work with other people to maybe have them watch your animal for a little bit. It's just not easy. But coming here with a pet right at this particular time is very difficult and very costly. And then you're going to pay those fees to the realtor, because you rent my house, and yeah, there's a pet cleaning fee. I know what animals do. I've seen them chew on cabinets. I've seen all that, and I'm going to be protected as a landlord.
There's pet deposit that you need to pay. But
Yes.
Here's our recommendation, right? If you know that you are PCSing here to Guam and looking to buy, okay, you're already dead set on buying, but you have a pet coming. What I personally would recommend, and confirm with me if this is a wise tip, advice, Adrian, is if you can, don't bring your dogs yet. Buy a house, get settled in your house. Once you have that house already, that's when you have your pet sent over. So that way you avoid, what's that, pet lodging, because that's expensive. right? Because not all hotels are gonna, while you're on TLA, not all the hotels, very few, you know, it'll fit my fingers or even just two will accept pets. So then that means you have to have your pet stay somewhere else. And then that costs money. So if you have a pet and you are planning to buy here on Guam, it's best to have your pet follow if that's possible.
Yes, that's a great piece of advice. I know many people have actually done that, that are waiting to have their pets sent once they procure housing, whether it be rental or purchasing, but to have the pet come afterwards, after the fact. Yes.
Correct. Okay, that's great. So we're done with the timeline. Um, oh, so let me see. Okay, so other than financial gain, why would somebody think of buying a house? Other than the money that they're going to be making off of it, why would somebody consider buying a house?
So the reason I've always loved owning over renting is because I can do what I want with my house. Right now, I got chickens in the backyard. I painted everything I wanted painted. I don't have to ask anybody for anything. I meticulously maintain my yard the way I like it, and I can change the fixtures if I want. I didn't want a ceiling fan, so I moved it. I didn't like the chandelier, so I got rid of it. I did what I want with my house. I had the appliances that I wanted. I installed my own dishwasher. And again, it kind of does go back to the finances, but I added value to my home. And if I do go to sell it or rent it, it increases the value. But I have more freedom, more control. I don't need to ask permission to do nearly anything, except maybe do some water lines outside from
Except
the
your wife.
governor.
Except ask permission from your wife.
Yeah, well, she comes up with most of it.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm just the guy working on it. She's the one that comes up with all this stuff. So.
All right. So other than financial gain, you have more freedom and more control if you own your own home. So you can bring like 10 pets into the house if you want. Okay. And you don't have to pay 10 pet deposits. So it's really up to you. So, okay, that's great. So buying on Guam, we are going to be using our VA benefit. Okay, so we are going to be shopping for a lender. Can you tell us how, you know, what you recommend, what steps, what questions, how to shop for a lender here on Guam? Because first of all, let's mention this. Like Bank of America does not do VA loans here on Guam. USAA doesn't do VA loans on Guam. Maybe Federal does not. There are only a few banks that do VA loans here on Guam. So Adrian, can you tell us what kind of question, how do you shop for a lender?
So this is a very important question. And this comes in with a little bit of experience, knowledge, and foresight. The questions that I ask a lender now are, well, twofold. The first thing, can I get a hold of the lender? There is nothing more frustrating than being at the closing table and having something, a last minute question, and I can't get a hold of the lender. And that's unacceptable. You know, they are working on my behalf. We are working together. It's a working relationship. I need to be able to get a hold of them. Then I want to talk to them and say, hey, how much can I afford? You know, and I want a realistic answer. If they're going to tell me something unrealistic, if they're going to give me a ballpark figure that I know I can't afford, that's a red flag for me. I want not only do I want an honest real estate agent, but I want an honest lender that says, look, with your debt to income ratio, with your income, with what the housing costs are, we need to give you a realistic number. That's first and foremost. Then shopping around as well. I need to find the best rate. And while this is a very big topic, there is still shopping around. I still can compete for rates because I'm not going to talk to the first person that just treats me nice and says, okay, yeah, we'll give you this rate. No, thank you. I appreciate everyone being cordial, but I'm in a business to save money. This is an investment, and I need to make sure my money is protected. I want the best deal I can get. I'm going to ask for rates. I'm going to ask what points, and we can talk about that a little bit more, but can I buy down points? Do points make sense? Can I lock in the rate? If you're not going to permit me to lock in the rate, and I know it's going to take me some time and the rate might adjust, then that's going to be an issue because if I don't have that rate that you promised at the time and rates go up, well, then that could throw off everything. And then what are the closing costs being put in? What extra is the lender tossing in? How many fees are the lender coming up with? Because I'm going to be paying this lender interest for years to come. So why are they tacking on extra costs? And again, people sometimes go in with a mindset, especially younger me, just saying, oh, well, that's just the way it is. No, that's not the way it is. I'm going to shop and I'm going to be a little more aggressive these days and say, all right, look, I got another offer, over here. So if you can't meet this, I can't do business with you. So shopping around, being aggressive, and really, I mean, people sometimes spend more time shopping for a pair of jeans than they do for a lender. I mean, they will sit there and go to different stores, find the jeans they want, but they won't spend more than 2 minutes doing some research on a good lender. Even they're limited here, you can still compete. It's a very competitive market. If they want your business, make them compete for it.
Did you mention about rate lock and did you bring that up?
Yeah, rate lock and of course points. Points can be a very kind of a deal breaker or can be the deal maker for me, particularly when talking about whether or not I'm able to buy down points.
Okay.
And I can address that if you like.
Okay. Well, not necessarily. We can have a lender talk about that on my next on my next interview with a lender.
Good.
So let's do this. Why would you say that Guam is a unique market compared to the real estate market in the mainland?
Absolutely, and this was what got me excited about coming to Guam in the first place. Sorry, I'm getting a little glare from the sun setting, but number one, as I said in the very beginning, if you were to move here without being in the military, it would cost you almost $30,000 to come out here. Well, the military's fronting that cost. That cost is not coming out of our pockets. So Guam is very isolated, and that makes the market very unique because it makes it hard to access. But once it is accessible, you realize that there's a lot of military out here and the prices are very unique. This is an American territory on a gorgeous tropical island. And who doesn't want to live on a tropical island? Beautiful part of the world, access to all of Asia, Australia, many other places. And the pay, again, with US in military is very unique because in many places, if you're military, when you go to the States, they'll pay you a set amount. Okay, good. That follows over to Guam, which is very advantageous because if I go to Japan, they're only going to pay me the rent, and it's very difficult to buy. If I go to Okinawa, if I go to Spain, any of those places. Here on Guam, you have a very isolated island with a very selected market. And now that the market is going to grow a little bit because we see that there are more Marines coming out, the bases are being more developed, the tourism's finally, of course, coming back, and the tourism from Asia out here is a very big. They love to come out here. It's closer to Japan and China, so they can come out here, closer than Hawaii, and they spend their money out here, and it grows the island's economy. And so being out here and owning your home out here, you have a very good potential to rent back to military and or to sell to military, or again, to hold it for the long term and make this a long-term investment. And we talked a little bit, we're going to go, I know, a little bit more into the actual numbers, but when you start to look at the numbers and renting, the potential to rent to military, which have a stable job, that you can get a hold of their employer if you need to very easily, and typically are really good to I've rented to military for over 14 years. I've had minimal issues, and when I did, they were resolved very quickly. So you have select market.
Because you can go to the commander.
You can say, hey, I'm having a problem with this. I can't say too much, but having an issue. Can we get this straightened out? I'll get a phone call back like that. So it is a really great opportunity to get yourself moved to an island and be able to purchase with relatively low upfront costs comparative if you would do it as a civilian without the military assistance.
Very good. That's very true. And what I've noticed in the market, right? Yes, there is a lot of movement, and most of the buyers really are VA buyers. They're the ones who can afford $400,000 to $650,000. Anything over than that, then that's just too much. That's above their OHA. And
yes.
there's a computation, there's a formula to that we're not even going to go to because then it gets complicated. So we're not going to talk about that right now. But just know that what's making real estate move here on Guam is the military, mostly due to the military movement. Okay, so and any investors that are buying here on Guam, why are they buying? Because they want to rent it to military or they want to sell it to military. Okay, so that's just something to think about. If you can buy here on Guam, you can either rent it to military or sell it to military when you PCS out of Guam. So, okay, that is great. And so with that being said, if you're here, you bought, right? And you were looking, you're leaving in 2 years or a 3-year tour or a 5-year tour. What do you recommend, Adrian? Do they sell or do they just rent it out?
So again, it's a very personal question and it's going to depend on the individual themselves. There are a couple avenues to take here. So if you know that you, like myself, become a resident here and you want to stay, renting would be a great option, especially if you come in with a lot of money and you put a good chunk down. You're going to pay down this property very quickly. These houses here on Guam, not a lot of people talk about this, but these suckers are solid concrete. Like, they are not coming down. These things are typhoon proof. And so they last. I'm not going to have to change the roof in 10 years or 20 years. And so renting becomes a really good cash flow stream, especially if you're able to get here, set yourself up, get a good team behind you, find yourself an electrician, find yourself a plumber, of course, find yourself a good property manager, and be able to have your team in place, know your costs, and figure out how much money you can continue to bring in every month should you decide to leave or rent the property when you go. Now, if you say, hey, Guam was great, I was there for 5 years, I put a lot of money into the house, the housing market rose year over year, I have $150,000, $200,000 now in equity, and I'm ready to go back to Florida or California or Virginia or whatever, and I'm ready to go buy my, forever home and settle down. Then you just got all that money back in your pocket and you can go right back and purchase a new home. So either way can be highly advantageous. Whether you do rent or you sell, staying here for about a 3-year period, as again, I know most people do, anywhere from 3 to 5 years, is just, in my mind, a no-brainer. It is a way to not only collect all that rent money, all that OHA that you were talking about, that you would be paying to somebody else, or you put a good portion of that right back into your pocket, collect it on the sale, and or continue to collect it perpetually until you decide that, hey, the house is paid off and now this is just another paycheck. So either way, it depends on the individual, but to rent it out or to sell is up to the individual, but either way is very advantageous.
Well, now is a good time to plug the 72 sold home selling system, because if you are PCSing, relocating to Guam, and you want to sell your home quickly for the most amount of dollars, I want you folks to check out 72sold.com or 72soldguam.com. So, Adrian, can you please? I'm always on a. I'm always doing the timestamp because I want to make sure that when the next topic comes up, I know when it's being brought up. So why don't we talk about the different scenarios about how much money they can pocket, how much money, if they sell, if they rent. So break it down for us if you don't mind. So I'm gonna make this big so that people can see it. Yeah. And hold on, before I do that, I need to make sure that it is in. Okay, okay, here we go. So Adrian, can you tell us about that sheet that you had put together for us, please?
Yes. So in the very first left-hand column there, it says pay leftover after 3 years, after 5 years, and the bottom one means principal after 3 years. So in the first column, or the second column rather, we see what a single or unaccompanied sailor would be getting $22.05 for their OHA. And now, mind you, this also doesn't include, utility pay, or any other thing like that. We're just talking OHA. If they were to purchase a $450,000 home, which is a standard price here, and they took a 30-year mortgage at 3%, they could expect to pay off their entire mortgage payment and have $168 left over. Now, after 3 years, if they just put that money right back into their pocket, they'd be walking away with about $6,048. If they're here on a 5-year tour, they can expect to walk away in their pocket with about $10,000. And their principal on the house that they bought would be somewhere around $413,500. So not only did they walk away with about $6,000, but now they have a good chunk of equity in the home. So moving over, the 2450, the third column there, that would be the typical family. So you're coming out with a family. Well, we run the same scenarios. The pay left over will now be $413. They could expect to walk away after 3 years with about almost close to $15,000 in their pocket if they didn't put this money back into the house. And if they were here for 5 years, they would be walking away with close to $25,000 in just leftover OHA. And their principal after that 3 years, they're looking around $405,000. The last category, and this is something that just drives me crazy when I see it, is the dual military, the mill to mill. Their cap is $4,400 for OHA. So if they were to go purchase that same $450,000 home, you'd be looking at a leftover payment in cash of $2,363. You extrapolate that out, as you can see here, after 3 years, nearly $85,000. And after 5 years, if they stayed here back-to-back tours or were both on sea or whatever, they'd be close to $140,000. And their home would have substantial equity in it if they were just making those minimum payments. So just looking at these numbers alone, all situations, all these are super advantageous to nearly everybody that's going to be here for at least a 3-year tour. So whether you're the single, whether you're married and you have dependents, or mill to mill, you can see the breakdown here of what you potentially could be walking away with when you leave your 3 to 5 year tour here on Guam. So I hope that explained that chart there.
Well, that explained, and this is, again, to put it into context, this is if they bought a home that was worth $450,000.
At 3%, yes.
At a 3% interest rate.
Correct.
Okay, very good. So folks, if you want this this illustration right here, you let me know and I can send it over to you. But if you want the breakdown and you want more numbers and all that, I will connect you to Adrian. And so moving on, we're almost done here. How about this? Are you going, if you are a buyer, okay, let me make sure again that my lap is good here. If you're a buyer, will you be able to save money if you work directly with the home seller, the homeowner? Or would you recommend, Adrian, that you get representation from a realtor?
So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I am fascinated by all those things. One day I hope to be a real estate agent. I've actually kind of poked around with this for a bit, but you know what? I don't mind paying good money for good help, because in the end, you can get bit very hard doing the wrong things. And especially if this is your first home buy, do not, I highly recommend, do not go in without representation, and do not, it can be very dangerous if you go in and use their kind of system. You're going in kind of blind. You want representation. You want to have someone that knows the system, knows the area, knows the rules, knows the properties, knows where to go, knows what's around. And again, one of the reasons why we work so well together, I come in and I ask tough questions. I say, hey, this is a working relationship. Obviously, what are you going to offer? What can you provide value? Because I'm willing to pay for that value, but there needs to be value. And of course, was not disappointed. It added a great value. I've been very happy with my investment, and it was all because I had good quality representation from someone that knew what they were doing. But going in, especially again, your first time, your first rodeo, no, that wouldn't do it. Would not go in and just work with the buyer, especially if they know what they're doing, because they're not in it to be your friend. They're in it
No.
to sell you, and they're in it to get as much money as you can. Again, you got to look at it from the other side of the table. Someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I trust you. I'm not a bad person. I'm not going to try to rip them off, but I'm going to get the best deal I can. I'm going to barter hard, and I'm going to ensure that I get a good deal on my end." So my interests are going to be more towards myself. So going with a trusted agent and going in with representation, and perhaps they're not going to tell you everything you want to hear, but if they're honest with you, that's saving you in the long run.
I like your parallelism that you're using. Like, you will pay for a good doctor because you're not going to go to Joe next door, and because you're going to save some money, you're not going to have Joe do surgery on your wound right there, right? You're going to go to a doctor, a professional, right? And the reason I say this is because, like, recently I went to a house that is for sale by owner. Okay, well, the owner really wanted to save money and not have a seller's agent represent them. Okay, I understand. That's fine. I worry about them, but they're looking to deal with buyers directly where the buyers don't have representation. So I worry for that situation. I worry for the buyers and I worry for the sellers because they don't have the professionals to help them. So just think about that, folks. Would you go to your neighbor instead of a doctor so you can save money? Or would you go to somebody who says he's a lawyer, but really, he just read up on the law, but really isn't really a lawyer, right? A licensed lawyer? Would you? So that's the same thing with a real estate agent. So please, our recommendation to you, you don't even have to work with me, but I don't know why you wouldn't want to, but our recommendation is get some representation. Get somebody who will represent you, who knows the market, who knows the process, who knows the industry. Get that person to represent you. Okay, so enough being said about that. So the last question that I have before we close up here is, what are your thoughts about homeowners title insurance?
So homeowners title insurance, a lot of people don't even know about this. And for me, it's about the market. That was one thing I was caught off guard here on Guam about, because there are a lot of disputes, or there can be a lot of disputes. It's a very family-oriented and old, kind of going back generation family. What can end up happening is, great granddad had a property, and then it all of a sudden got dispersed to all the kids, and then they dispersed it to their kids, and then, you go to the title company, and that's their job. They have, that responsibility of following up and finding out who owns the property, who has the title, what's it, make sure everything's kosher. But to protect yourself and give that extra layer of protection, it could be a good idea. I mean, if this is a property that you've researched and you are 100% certain who owns it, okay. But if there's any doubt about the legality of this property, and you're concerned about it, then it could be a good idea for you to do. I'm sure you kind of have, I know you have a piece on this as well, for sure. For me, if I could go back, I probably would have done it. I didn't, but I was unaware at the time of it. I do feel comfortable now. I did a little more research after the fact. So it just depends on the area. But it's something to definitely consider. It's one of those things that, again, kind of that backup insurance. I always like to cover my bases. And we always keep growing and learning, and this was a learning process for me as well. So, yeah, it's something to be considered for sure.
So my take on title insurance, the owner's title insurance, is, like, for example, where you bought your home, that's a subdivision. Okay, so whoever developed that area pretty much knew that that land is good, right? Or they wouldn't have built on it. So,
Correct.
like, if it's a subdivision like Paradise Estates, Paradise Meadows, maybe I can forego owner's title insurance. But if like it's in the middle of Santa Rita, you know, or middle of Talipofo, and you don't, you know, it's not a subdivision. It's not a planned urban development. I would recommend that you get title insurance. Okay, and of course, always research. So, wow, Adrian, that was a lot of juicy topics that we covered. So folks, don't worry. I know this is a long, you know, if you're going to watch this, it's replay. It's more than an hour long. I thought we would finish an hour, but it's just been too interesting. Right? But don't worry, because we're going to cut these segments up, and that's why I needed to timestamp, so it's easier for us to cut them up. But we're going to cut them up so they're in bite-sized pieces, and Adrian is going to, I'm going to share it with Adrian so he can post it on his YouTube channels and his Facebook. And also we are going to be posting it on our Facebook and our YouTube channels so that you can always refer to it when you need it. But Adrian, I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, your expensive mistakes, you know, and the lessons learned from that. We really appreciate it. You have a great evening, sir, and best to Bree and the rest of your family.
Thank you so much, and likewise. Thank you so much. You have a great rest of your evening.
Bye, Adrian. So folks, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that was helpful. If you're watching the replay and you have questions, again, send us your questions, and you know, we will answer it. You can always email me at leah@livingonguam.com. You can go on the Facebook page, send me a private message there. You can go on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, wherever. Just send us the questions. You guys, some of you guys have my number, and you send me WhatsApp questions. Do it. We will do our best to answer you in a timely manner, but we do get to everybody's questions. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining us. Be blessed. Be a blessing. I'll see you guys on Saturday for the Guam Weekly Market Housing Review.